Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room. Today, we are on American time. We are going to make sure that we get our American audience the content that they subscribe for. If I seem a bit quiet, it's because it's 2 a.m. currently in the UK. But I'm joined today by Andreas and Colin. How are we both doing? Everyone good?
Great here.
Fantastic.
Perfect. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get started. Starting off with Nico Williams. The rumours, according to multiple journalists, actually, is a good number that have reported it, saying that Liverpool, Tottenham, and Arsenal all in the race for the winger. 21 years old, currently coming from Athletic Bilbao. A lot of discussion around it, a lot of discussion whether it's or not it's someone we actually need. Andreas, I'll go to you first. Is this a player that we necessarily need, or do you think this is something that we're looking at just as a bit of a contingency in case Salah leaves or another player leaves, maybe?
Well, I'm not going to say that I've seen a lot of Nico Williams play. I've only really seen him play for the Spanish national team. But if I'm being honest, the links do seem more to be coming out of the fact that everyone is talking about Mo Salah potentially leaving next summer. And I think that this is just another name that's being thrown around because of his contract expiring, as you were saying. If he is going to leave Athletic Bilbao, I think it's more likely he ends up staying in Spain. Barcelona is a team that's been also linked with him outside of Tottenham and Arsenal. I think it's more likely he does end up staying in Spain or extending that contract, which is a possibility. I just think it's a name being thrown around because people are expecting Salah to leave, and so they know we're looking for a right-sided winger.
And Colin, I'll pass the next question to you then. So obviously, in terms of price, there's about a £50 million release clause. Do you think this is something, do you think it's good value for money, £50 million for a 21-year-old winger? Or do you think it's money that we could be investing elsewhere in the club?
I think it would only be spent if it was in a case where Salah is going to go. Based on the amount of money that I think reasonably should expect to return on Salah, I think that would be a good purchase. And the profile fits kind of what FSG and Klopp have kind of confirmed that FSG really want, which is a good amount of games, a young age, and something to grow into, really, for not 65 plus million. It seems like the threshold's sort of around there, except for absolutely special cases. And so I think 50 million euro I think would be good for what we would be getting if it would be the case that Salah goes. Replacing him is going to be so difficult for many reasons, but I think that it would be it's pretty shrewd business if it were to happen.
I mean, his contract does expire next summer, so obviously he's got less than a year left. I mean, if the £50 million release clause is the set release clause, surely we might be able to get a bit of wiggle room in there, maybe get it for a bit cheaper.
Yeah. If he's totally out of contract in the next summer as well, aren't they allowed to sign pre-contracts starting 6 months prior?
Yeah.
So
I think it has to be in a different league as well, or something like that. Like, it can't be a team from the same league,
right? And La Liga have some interesting financial rules between them as well. So, I think you could probably tempt them into it for really cheap. I think they would be pretty scared to lose him for nothing, if he really is serious about losing. And this isn't, we see this so much. There's so much agents love Liverpool so much. They use our name constantly. And so if it were to be, something that this would be, really being looked at, then I think for a really reasonable fee, I think it would be a good squad signing at the moment and someone who can grow into something better.
Sure. Andreas, I'll ask you, obviously, like you said, it all just does depend on if Salah leaves. Out of us, Arsenal and Tottenham, do you realistically see us as the club that he would choose to go to, where he's going to be fighting for first team football, or do you see him maybe going to Tottenham, where he's a bit more likely to get the football, or do you think the appeal of us would be too great for Tottenham or Arsenal to get him?
I think, not to be very biased here as Liverpool fans, but I feel like we are the best destination of those three. And I'm going to say that, let's say if Salah leaves, I think it's the best option for Nico Williams then to pick Liverpool at that point, because then you have the opening. Even though we do have other attackers available, there's still a big chance to get a lot of first team minutes at that spot. Compare it maybe more to Arsenal. You already have Saka and everything, and so I think that's gonna be a harder spot to get into versus the big player from Liverpool leaving, and then that there's competition for that spot that you have a chance to get that. And going back just quickly to what Colin was saying about the fee for Nico Williams, I think if honestly getting him for 40, 50 million in today's market, he's a player with a really high ceiling for sure. Honestly, recently, as somebody that watches a lot of Spain national team football, like an attacker, I've been very excited about compared to other ones that have come up recently. He's definitely the most exciting one. So I would say, like, even getting him for like 40 million, there's a lot of upside to it. He does have a big ceiling. Like, he can really improve. He's only 21 years old. So I think it would make more sense Tottenham as an option versus Arsenal, but I do see Liverpool being by far the best option if he does decide to go to the Premier League.
I mean, we've seen a lot of Spanish players like Brian Hill. He went to Spurs. He didn't exactly do great. The only thing about him is he in league and domestic competitions, he's only scored 6 goals in 77 appearances, which, trying to replace Salah isn't the best thing in the world. And this comment says it. I mean, only Mbappe can replace Salah. Club needs to learn from its 2014 window where they signed lousy players to replace Suarez. Now, difference with this is, back then, when we sold Suarez, he was our only world-class player, whereas now we have enough world-class players to sort of accommodate that. Would you agree with that, Colin, or would you say otherwise with regards to that?
And I think, we often talk, we as Liverpool fans often talk about, especially in the last 6 months, about replacing Salah, and I think that's kind of it's almost like a false narrative in a way. That assumes and presumes that we're looking to replace him like one for one with someone who is going to be the main goal scoring threat and someone who is going to be a left-footed winger, but really cuts inside and plays like almost off of a second striker, or ends up centrally so much. That presumes that we're going to be looking for someone to do that immediately, or to only be that role. And I don't think that I think if we were only to look for someone who could do that exactly, we're really, really limiting ourselves and kind of cutting ourselves out of what could be like really great players, but who just do something maybe slightly different and maybe don't have quite the goals, but the team can be built in different ways that those goals can be made from different areas.
I think another thing with that as well is in that summer we sold Suarez, people seem to forget we did try and sign Alexis Sanchez. So, the intent was there to get world-class players. It's just a shame that we ended up with Balotelli and Ricky Lambert. Like, it happens sometimes. And this summer, I don't think a lot of people thought we'd end up with Gravenberch and Szoboszlai. We went for Caicedo and Lavia. Things change. If you sell a player like Salah, we're probably going to sign 2 or 3 players in replacement of him. Doesn't mean it's not going to work out. It's just, you have to sort of trust the process. And like you say, we can't just replace him like for like. It's impossible. And, it's one of those things that if we do sell him, we need to take motivation from the Coutinho sale and develop elsewhere and build up the areas of the pitch that clearly need working on. Just before we carry on with that topic, if everyone could just please make sure to like and subscribe, it really does help out massively. We are close to 10k subscribers. We are on 9.76, I believe, and there's a new video just come out today on the channel predicting the Toulouse lineup, so make sure that you tune into that as well. Interesting comment here, just before we move on. I can see Thiago leaving January to Saudi. He can leave on a free in the summer. Andreas, I've not heard your thoughts on Thiago. What do you feel about him?
I'm just curious if he's going to play a game before January at this point. I have no idea what the timetable is on Thiago. And that's kind of worrying because we have other players that are coming back from injury, like even sooner. You see Cody Gapco on the side without a boot. Looks like he can be back in a week or two. Something like that, and then we haven't really heard anything about Thiago. And it makes me wonder if there's something more at the club level besides injury, if maybe there's a little bit of a teetering relationship. One party wants to part, maybe Thiago wants to go. Um, I'll be honest, I do love Thiago. He's an incredible player. And when he's been healthy at Liverpool, he's been just an absolute maestro. So I would love to see him play for the club at this point this season. But as each week goes by, we don't hear an update. I get more disheartened about it. So I feel like now if he leaves in January or leaves on a free in the summer, I'm not going to be too heartbroken about it. Thank God we've gotten some really great midfielders in the summer that have gotten me really excited, and we're linked with more midfielders. It's coming to the point though where I'm seeing less and less of a place for Thiago currently on this team, just because we don't hear any updates about when he's coming back. And I think right now the team is thinking about its future without Thiago in those plans based on what's happening so far.
Colin, do you agree? Do you think that there's a future with Thiago, or do you think it's better we just start looking elsewhere and moving past the midfielder?
I don't think there's definitely not a future beyond, maybe a 1-year extension past the year. And it's been such a weird 9 months for him, and for him in turn, like in this, within the squad. It's one of the strangest like injury mystery sagas that I've seen. And to Andreas' point, I wonder if there's more happening. I wonder if something else is affecting this. It's very bizarre. I as well. I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Liverpool fan that doesn't say, when he's healthy and if he can be on the pitch, he's incredible. He has skills and can do things that nobody else on the team and very few people in the world can do. But at this point, like with his age and with the injury history, I wonder if it wouldn't be a better option if you can get something for him, to let him go do that, and to kind of make room and make a path for someone else to take a spot in that way.
Maybe like a badge stitch, something like that. Maybe finally give him his chance.
Yeah. Speaking of strange injury, injury history and over the last 9 months, which I was listening to the Anfield Rap podcast, and they were talking about, they were wondering if that's something that maybe if you can get him healthy and back up to some sort of speed by January or by the window, if you don't loan him out for 6 months somewhere to get him a good run of games with maybe is not quite as high of a level of expectation, and kind of essentially punt on this season for him with us and try to get him back in great form for next off season, and really maybe look to fill those kind of squad depth maybe issues if you do receive any money for Thiago in the January window.
I mean, loan spells can be effective. We saw Harvey Elliott when he was at Blackburn. He came back and he formed very well until his injury. But sticking on the topics of midfielders, especially defensive midfielders, Andre is one of several options that we're linked with this January. I think he's the one who's been spoke about the most of the talks of us possibly going in for him in the summer, even in early August, I believe, something around that time. According to Anfield Edition, he remains linked back with Liverpool by Jurgen Klopp, and is one of several different options Liverpool are exploring in midfield now. I think I speak for most fans when I say Andre is the one that we want. But Andreas, is there anyone maybe that you could see us going for instead, or anyone that you think might be better suited, whether it be the way they play or the price?
Honestly, the problem, I think a lot of people realized it during this summer specifically, is that the DM market is a little lackluster once you get through the 1 to 2 top players.
Mhm.
The rest, there's a huge drop off in quality from the rest. There's 2 players that I think of DM options that are like my top ones, and they are unrealistic to say the least. It's one of them is Chouameni, who we've tried to get, went to Real Madrid. Then over the summer, we heard his name mixed around a lot, being that there was a little bit of fallout between him and Real Madrid as a club about playing time. So then fans were hoping that he would become an option. He's a fantastic player, and there's a reason why we wanted him. What was it, 2 summers ago? And then we were very disheartened when he went to Real Madrid. The other player for me is Joshua Kimmich. Just fantastic player that switched from the right back role into that DM role and did it very fluidly. And we also, I think, had some links to him back during last summer. To be fair, we were being linked to basically any person that has ever played the DM role in their career. So take that with a grain of salt. When it comes to Andre, I do see now, I think the rumored price is around 50 million euros. It would be something around that number, which is, I think if you look back a couple years ago, it seems like a really high number. In today's market, it somehow seems like an all right number. Like you get a good midfielder for 50 million, you're pretty happy with that, which is ridiculous to think now. But I won't say that I've seen Andre play a lot. I think about 99% of Liverpool fans have only seen him through highlights, but he does seem like a very exciting young talent. Like, for Christ's sake, it's a young Brazilian player. Like, what's there not to be excited about? Real Madrid has made a business of just signing young Brazilian players, and it works out for them. So I think he should be 100% the top target for Liverpool for the DM. And I'll be curious to see if we make that big push in January to do that. I have a feeling that it would be maybe more next summer, if I'm being honest, but I would be very excited in January.
Colin, do you agree? I mean, do you see this being a January move or maybe a summer move like Andreas thinks? And do you think that Andre is the one that we should be going for? Or do you think there's any better alternatives, maybe Manu Kone or Kefran Turam?
I love both of those names you just mentioned. I'm really high on both. Both of them, after how everything kind of played out during the summer and kind of finding out that Thuram especially was, his asking package was like incredibly high wages. I wonder if both of those names don't, or at least Thuram is not very agent. I mentioned it before, very agent motivated smoke. I really, really like Manu Kone as well. I think he's really phenomenal. I'd be thrilled if it was him. That I think just seems like a too convenient of a link based on Jurg's pretty much everyone he signed was German from Bundesliga, correct?
Yeah.
Except Alexis McAllister. So the 3 for 4. So that it obviously makes sense. I think for the price that you can get Fluminense to sell Andre, I think that's incredible business. If he were to go to, the Brightons of the world, the Aston Villas of the world, if that was someone that they would have got in 8 months' time, not 12 months' time, everyone in the league would be like, we would kill to pay 75 million for him.
He looks for 100 million next summer,
easily. And I have in one of the very first streams that we were talking about Andre. I think right after that story, like very first broke, there was a Fluminense account that was in here. It followed a bunch of us, and so I followed them back. And they obviously are posting a lot of either like clips or stories, things like that. And posted a couple like game links, some like weird, shady like game stream links that I was like, screw it, I'll watch it. To be determined if I got any like viruses from it yet or not. But watch some, and I don't know that he is a pure 6. He's not, he's not 6'4" and just gonna play. he's more 6'8", you know, a little more athletic, but man, just quality. And with his like current like break into the Brazilian national team, and someone who's being really considered for that as well, I think that business would be phenomenal. And I think that there's so much smoke around the story that and around the kind of rumors about him, plus the links with Alisson, and you know, we all know business is a lot more than just, it is a lot more personal and a lot more like relationship oriented than a lot of people, I think, especially on Twitter, give it credit for. And we saw Indy, you know, our favorite Twitter, Indy, tweet earlier about like, you know, Alisson is highly involved. Now he could just be making that up and based on assumptions, but like that really is something that we've seen that Liverpool have taken into consideration the feelings and the thoughts of their players when looking at transfer targets. And if that's someone that, you know, that Alisson has been aware of, or Alisson is able to kind of act as an intermediary for, or speak, you know, highly on his behalf, you know, that's how business gets done. And I think that could really give an edge versus, you know, like I don't see like Gabriel Martinelli or Gabriel Jesus like necessarily being that kind of figure to, you know, to them. And with Alisson's connections with the club, like I think that there just is too much that makes sense here to not be like, okay, this makes business sense. Like, let's do this.
Well, I mean, like you say, like footballers talk. Do you know what I mean? In the modern day, especially social media and everything like that, they all talk, they all communicate.
Yeah.
And Gravenberch himself's come out and said that Van Dijk helped convince me to come here. So, you know, clearly there's pull. And with regards to Andre, what you were saying about he's not your traditional CDM, I think of him more as the N'Golo Kante than the Nemanja Matic. Like he's more of a mobile, he'll win the ball back, he'll track forward if he needs to, come back when he has to. Andreas, if I said to you, right, okay, we're in the January window, you know how Liverpool work, we have to sell to buy. Who are you selling money-wise to make the funds to sign Andre, and our other key area, which is arguably a centre-back, say Hincapié or, you know, someone along those lines? What changes are you making in the upcoming window, or would you not want to change too much about the squad?
So when we're looking, if the thing is really sell to buy to get that midfield, to get Andre, I would actually be very worried about selling right now where the team is, based on how every position besides attack, it feels like you're an injury or two away from all of a sudden we're in the depth problem again. The defense really worries me right now. Obviously, we had the Robertson injury. Looks like he's going to be out for, I think, some 10 weeks, but it could be more. Like, it looks like a very bad injury with that surgery. We're down to Tsimikas. And then last week we were seeing like Diaz being shifted down to that left side. So I'd be worried about selling anybody in the defense side to fund a purchase there. At that point, if somebody told me sell a player to get Andre or don't sell any players in January, I think the safer option would definitely be to not sell anybody. So I am hoping that the club would be willing to go get Andre without looking to make a sale in January. Maybe a sale has to come in the summer, but I think a sale in January could disrupt things a lot, even with a DM coming in.
Okay, Colin, thoughts on that? Feelings?
I don't know who is a good option or good potential to sell at this point. We're not far off the top. We're not out of anything yet. You know, we're not out of any competitions. So we've still got the full complement to play. And to Andreas's point, we're like one more defensive injury away from being really skint defensively. Like, you know, Joe Gomez has been phenomenal at kind of filling. I think his form at the moment is really, really underrated, maybe, you know, by Liverpool fans as a whole. He's been great in these kind of spot roles that he's been asked to play. whether it be to back up in a right back or to put. He was great playing left back when he made an appearance over the weekend. He's been good when he's been asked to play center back. If Trent takes an injury and if Trent, maybe he let's say in theory, knock on wood that he doesn't, if he re-aggravates something of that musculature that he had injured, Joe Gomez has to play right back. And all of a sudden then we're Costas on the left and no backup, no true backup. And then we're Joe on the right and no true backup there. And then we're down to the 4 like center backs, just if Kwanzaa's the 4th, so all of a sudden that looks really thin to be in 4 competitions with, especially upcoming with the increased, amount of games over the next 2 months, 3 months. So can be a little dicey. I don't really don't think there's room to sell. I think the Andre price is, he's been good. I think he's been good almost regardless of who he's been paired with. But that kind of extra pressure, I think maybe has kind of pushes him in some cases to step up in where he maybe hasn't in the past. The Andres transfer should not cost more than what are they, like 20, 25 million euros?
25, 35 million. That's obviously Andreas said about 50 million euros, which is about.
That's with the rumors of other clubs being involved now. I think it came out last week that Arsenal was interested. And trust me, if Fluminense sees an opportunity to get a little bidding war going on, they'll jack up that price to 50 million.
Yeah, I mean, and
that's what. Yeah.
And who can blame them? Almost really, they don't always have the opportunity to make the amount of money that can kind of fund their operating costs for
definitely
10 years, or 5 to 10 years worth of operating costs off of the sale of one person. That's the kind of that's business. Like not a ton you can do.
It comes down on our part then to getting that deal done quickly before Arsenal have a chance to get a foothold in there or any other club. If we do that deal quickly, we are able to get that good price. Maybe it ends up being around 30 million because there's a little bit other interest. But that's why I think if this is a player that's top priority for them, it would make the most sense then to go after him in January and then not wait another 6 months for the summer transfer window.
Absolutely.
I think get him cheaper, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened with Caicedo. As soon as Chelsea went in for him, and then we went in for him, it just went to astronomical prices. So I agree on that one.
And as well, to have the person, I would just say to have the if the rumor or the story is kind of true about, Alisson being involved really with it, to have that kind of personal or somewhat of a more personal connection to hopefully where you're going can really, in theory, convince him to say to Fluminense, hey, this is where I want to go. Please work with them to figure out a price that is reasonable for you. And I want to go here. Please sell me to them and let's find a way to make a deal there.
Yeah. And to be fair as well, it might sound a bit daft, but I can't think of any other Premier League teams that have had as much success with Brazilian players in the past. I mean, Chelsea had Pato, which didn't really work out. United had the likes of, I think, Anderson, Raphael. It didn't really work. There's not a lot of Liverpool, whereas we've had Firmino, Alisson, Fabinho. You've got success with them, and obviously, like you say, they're going to talk. They're going to share their experiences of the club. It just makes sense for Andre to want to come to us. I think more than any other club, particularly.
Especially recently. I mean, I think Chelsea have had Oscar for a while, and they've had a couple stints. They had a couple stints of David Luiz, to varying degrees of success. But especially within the last 5 years, we've had multiple, pretty much at every point except for right this moment, the last 6 months. So, I just think that there's a lot of business and personal connections that just seems like it's really pointing towards Like, let's just get this done.
We don't want another Hincape or Inacio situation where, because we've took too long, like you say, the price doubles because we missed the release clause deadline. So, I mean, Szoboszlai, we got him on his release clause just in time. If we hadn't have paid that then, he probably would have cost 80, 90 million now. So, proof that it can work. Just a comment, we have 5 centre-backs. That's more than enough. We need a couple of defensive-minded midfielders. I completely agree. I don't think Endo is the right player to take us forward defensively. Gravenberch looks okay in defensive. McAllister doesn't seem like it suits him. Surely Andre would need at least 2-3 weeks off in January. I mean, are we saying to match the fitness, or
their season is different time-wise from everybody else?
Of course, yeah.
They've just finished. They're just finishing their entire season, I believe. So it would.
Isn't that like the MLS or something as well? Isn't that just
similar? Yeah, MLS playoffs are going on or about to be going on. Correct.
I want to say something about the 5 center backs real quick.
Yeah, of course.
The problem is that 2 of the center backs you're counting are Matip and Gomez, who can get injured literally instantly in a season and be out for weeks. So I would say there's 3 center backs that you can really confidently say probably going to be healthy. But I will say the center backs, we go from having a lot of depth to having very little depth in the center back department like every season. It happens. It takes one of those injuries and look really bad for a few weeks.
And the 5th person's Kwanzaa, who's he's played great when he's been asked to, but he's still this. That's assuming that he is going to stay healthy and still performing at this level for the entirety of the season, which is really a big question for young players. It's not necessarily are they good, it's can they keep a level of quality over the course of 9-10 months and keep that kind of level where it is. That's really the real question. So ideally for me, I think that would be signing someone in the defensive department would be someone who is let's say Konate is prone to an injury as well. Someone left-footed who can kind of deputy as left back if needed, or can just play in a third, that. Someone who has a little more flexibility, almost like Joe Gomez does, kind of positionally, who he can play at any position across the back 4. That's someone who I would be really interested in. Not necessarily someone who is Virgil van Dijk plays at left center back exclusively, or central center back in a 3. That's it. That's the only position he's going to play. I'm in agreement. We don't really need someone who's not going to be able to play in any other position. But if you can find someone who is a little more tactically flexible, a little bit, doesn't have to be a 6'4" giant, but someone who can play left back, who can deputy as right back if they have to, plays on the left side of a 3 and center back. That's someone who is really interesting for me.
Just the name Levi Colwill. I mean, he does that at the moment for Chelsea. He plays as left back, plays as a centre back in a back 3. I mean, would have been ideal.
Would have been,
but he's probably going to cost about 80 million now.
And they would never
clause in his contract.
Todd Bowley would never do business with us.
No, God, no. I think we discussed this previously a few weeks ago, actually. Just a comment here before we move on to the next topic. Is there no DM in Europe? We have an Asian, now we have a South American. It was mentioned in the early show, rightfully, that these players are knackered after internationals. I agree to an extent, but at the same time, we can't base our business around 3 or 4 international friendlies or international fixtures per season when that player is going to play 38 plus games for us. I mean, the focus should be someone who's going to improve our team, not they're going to be tired after coming back from the internationals, so we can't use them for 4 games. To me personally, I mean, I just don't see the benefit of adjusting our transfer strategy dependent on what the international teams are doing. I do understand it, but it's not, it's not exactly a necessity.
It's an issue that every top team has now because all their players are international and they're having it. I think it's not as important as people make it out to be. I think it's just something that a lot of teams deal with, and it doesn't become a major factor. I don't think that should be too much of a worry, though.
No, and
That's
yeah,
like
go on.
it's like a double-edged, like, you want someone good enough that is going to be playing for their country, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
Exactly.
ideally, like you want someone who is a captain for their country, or who is,
Mhm.
of the quality where they're going to have to play
Mhm.
for their country at some point. Like it's that's kind of like a reductive argument to me, I think, as well, which is like they're all going to have to play internationals at this point. Like, just picking one because I mean, and honestly though, as well, like if you go down the list of like people who are European and who are available, and of the quality and of the price, like that list is really, really small.
Yeah,
Like
it's very narrowed down.
really little. There are very
Yeah.
few people who are even, worth the quality at all.
Mm.
Who I think we should be interested in. And Rodri's not for sale. So
Mhm.
like there's only so much, like I think, that you can do.
Yeah, and like I'm in my head, I'm really struggling to think. I think Turan is the only one I can even think of at the moment. Um, Beside that, there's no one I can particularly just call out straight away. Um, but there is one actually that we are being linked with, Kalvin Phillips. Now, just want to get your guys' opinion, Andreas. I'll start with you. Kalvin Phillips, do you think he's someone who can fit our system? We've seen in the past that we sign players who, Salah was a Chelsea reject. Mane wasn't exactly tearing things up at Southampton at times, but we turned him into a gem. Is this one that we could potentially look at and think we could turn him into something really good for us, or is this just a stay away, don't touch kind of player?
Well, I think the first thing you gotta look at is, oh, this guy's a Man City player. Why are they going to sell to us in a position that we need? I just don't see that happening. Like they know that I think for Pep Guardiola, at any point, a healthy Liverpool is his biggest concern in the league. No other team like really freaks him out quite like us. He realizes that we're their biggest competition. I think the club would be so against selling a DM, which we need, to like their biggest rival currently in the Premier League. And then, but maybe just forget about that part for now and just talk about the player. The thing that worries me about Kalvin Phillips compared to, you mentioned like Sadio Mane when he was at Southampton, we were looking at him. A big difference there was that he was playing every game, Sadio Mane,
Mm.
Southampton. If Rodri's available, Kalvin Phillips is not touching the pitch. He's staying in his warm up kit and maybe jogging around on the sidelines a little bit. But that's it. Pep Guardiola is not bringing that guy on if Rodri is fit. And it worries me that he's not playing consistent first team football. And then we're looking for him then to fill in that DM role for us. For me, it's as a transfer, stay away, don't touch it. And I don't even think we're really going to get an offer. If we were to approach Man City, I think they would tell us just to go away at that point.
So just before I pass over to you, Colin, Kalvin Phillips, he has, since his time at Man City, he has 4 starts for Man City. He has 5 for England. So, tells you all you really need to know. I mean, Colin, do you think this is something that City might think, thank God, get rid of them, you can have them, we don't care? Or do you agree with Andreas? Do you think this is something where they go, no, we don't want any business to do with you?
It, it might be a little bit of both in some ways. It might be a little bit of, but firstly, I don't know what they were like, why they did that kind of business. Like why did why, if he's only good enough to start 4 games for them, surely that they would have been able to see that in the scouting and in the data. And
Mm.
like why did they bring him in to, what about him was such a surprise that they paid the money for him, and
Mm.
then he doesn't touch the field. Um, and I don't think that you know, they are the kind of people who will never admit something like that. They will always say it just doesn't, it didn't fit system wise, or,
Mm.
oh, Pep's fickle, and it, we could sell it to you for, whatever. And whatever that sale price is, it's going to be way more than they actually value him at.
Mhm.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If they say 30, that means they probably value him at 10, which is like horrible. We would never be interested in someone that they would value at that price, given his profile and his injury history. I think, I do think that like City is the wrong place for him. I don't think that it allows him in any way to show or live up to the potential that I think he has. And like within 2 or 3 seasons that he's been there.
He's been there 2 seasons.
In that amount of time, like if we would have been asked when he went to City, we would have said, yeah, we'd take him. I'd take him over Jordan Henderson when he was sold. So yeah, sure. That level, I don't think necessarily just goes away unless it's with age or with injury or with, but where he is certainly doesn't help show that kind of potential he has. I just don't think that for what they would be interested in selling him to us for, that we should do business. I don't think we should do business with them based on that premise, let alone will they even do business with us?
Completely agree. And you talk about promise, but he is 27 and he turns 28 on the 2nd of December. So it's not even like he's got a high.
I don't know why I always feel like he's like 24 years old. Maybe it's because he always gets young.
I think
he's actually like 27 going on 28.
Yeah.
Like he's saying like he's promising and everything. Like he's almost 30. He's gonna be 30 in a few years. And you talk about him like he's like an academy player.
Yeah.
And everything. I feel bad for him in that case that he's obviously went to a very big club going from Leeds, but now he's in a situation where he just doesn't play football. And so he could have been a very talented player in Europe, but now he's kind of just sitting on the bench. Sure, he's winning trophies, but he's not playing at all, which is a tough situation. He could have been very class though.
I think he's suffered from, I think he's looked at Jack Grealish the season before and thought, oof, he got into the team, I can do the exact same thing. And to be fair to City, they do good business, but they have been linked with players in the past who have turned out dreadfully. Harry Maguire was one, Cucurella was another, Jorginho was another. They were close to getting them and then they ended up going elsewhere. Maybe this is one that's just slipped through the cracks. It's just a bad transfer. It happens to everyone. I remember when he signed
before he went to United.
Yeah. So tried to sign Ronaldo, didn't work. Went to United, did very well, but all the personal problems and everything. To me, it just seems like you said earlier, it's Liverpool need a defensive midfielder. Here's a defensive midfielder who's not getting into the team. Put them together. Story. There's nothing concrete to it. How much? If this was a genuine thing, though, if this was someone we were looking at, if this is someone who we think could develop us or make us better, what price are you definitively saying he's worth? Colin, I'll ask you first.
4 starts in 2 whole years.
So since the summer of 2022, he's made 15 appearances for City.
That's really bad. That's really not good. Not more than I would definitely not pay more for him than I'd pay for Andre. Whatever that is, if the Andre price is going to end up at 25 or if it's going to end up at 30, okay. I think that probably is a little high based on the summer price that they were saying was 15 or 20, but like 15 or 20 is what if we were getting him on permanent, 15 or 20 is what the Kalvin Phillips would be worth, because that would be a one contract. A one contract player. That's a 5-year contract, and you don't get another one. You're not getting re-upped. You're not signing another. Yeah. It's almost similar maybe to what Endo would be, just in terms of contract wise, which is like you're at this age, the club only values that age to a certain extent. We'll give you this contract, but and I'm sure they tell them up front, the likelihood is that they will not they're not getting another contract.
Yeah. Andreas, same question to you. What price are you saying he's worth?
Maybe back at the peak of his hype, like when Leeds got promoted, and he was talked about a lot about being like that star player from that Leeds side. He's going to make a big difference when they start playing in the Prem. I think at that point he could have gone for like a 30 million, maybe even 35, because he was like a homegrown player and being English and all. But I have to agree with Colin here. I think like if I were to get him now, like 20 million would feel even like a lot. It would have to be something between 15 and 20 million. That's just where his stock currently is right now with so little starts. He's getting up there in age. You just look at that amount of money and you're like, why not spend this somewhere else? It just feels like it could be spent in a better area than going after this guy. So I think we would never get him for 20 million. I think if we offered 20 million to City, I think they'd be like, he's going to be like 50 million pounds or something like that. They would offer some ridiculous price. But I think, yes, something between 15 to 20 million, like Colin said, is probably how much I would spend on him.
So that's 15, 20 million. Paul Indo asks, what's his wages? He's on 160,000 a week. Now, that's a lot of money for someone who just sits on the bench. Whereas I think Andre would probably give him around 80k a week, something like that, or something just half the price.
Yep.
So, financial wise, prospect wise, you're never going to be able to sell Kalvin Phillips for more than we buy him for. Let's be real. He's not going to increase in value. He's just going to deteriorate in value. So, deteriorate even. So, for me, there is a good player there, but there's a good player there for a team like Luton or Everton or something like that. Speaking on the Everton one, then someone commented saying, would you be interested in Amadou Onana? Yes, he's a good player, but Everton would not sell to us. Not a chance unless they were absolutely desperate, which they might be with all the financial restraints, but I just don't see it as a possibility, really. Just before we move on to the last topic, guys, before we answer some of your questions, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content. There are streams every single day, 7:30 UK time, that's 7:30 PM, 2 a.m. UK time for the American audience, and we have post-match streams as well, including this Thursday after Toulouse and Sunday after Nottingham Forest. So, just on the final topic, before we answer some of the questions, Victor Oshimen, Andreas, just want to get your quick thoughts on him.
Oh, what a fantastic player. A player I've liked a lot since he was playing back in France. Was one of those like exciting talents. Especially like there's been a lot of talk about this new like Nigerian attacking age coming up. And at the same time, it was like Chouameni was making a lot of noise at Villarreal, and then it was Osimhen. And I kept track of his stats, and of course he was coming from Lille, who just have an amazing eye for talent of getting a player, selling them for like 50 million to another club, and then instantly getting another player that's very similar profile. And they just churn these guys out. And I was then very curious, how is he going to perform in Italy? And he's been just a star in Italy. And even with all the noise of everything that happens in Italy as like a black footballer in that league, and how terrible it can be, he just overcomes it, plays. You can just tell he's very strong-willed and an exciting talent, one of the most exciting talents in Europe, in my opinion. And now we're seeing links to Osimhen. There was a link that came out a few days ago about an agreement with him from Liverpool, a personal agreement. I think Fabrizio Romano said something about that not being true. But then again, I think even as of today, I've seen another link of that again. I think we're seeing those links because of the Salah situation, about him potentially leaving. Somebody earlier in the stream said the only player that they could see replacing like 1-for-1 Salah is Kylian Mbappe. I think Osimhen, I wouldn't say 1-for-1 replaces Mohamed Salah, but he's one of those players that's the closest you can get if we're being realistic. If we were to lose Salah in the summer and we had to sell him and we got Osimhen, it would be a nice consolation prize for sure. He's definitely a player I like a lot, and I'm happy to hear that there is some smoke with him in Liverpool.
So, Colin, I just want to get your thoughts on Osimhen as well, but I also want to get your thoughts on, obviously, if we sign him, he's a striker. We already have Gakpo and Nunez, two very different players who operate that position. Who do you move where, and who do you maybe drop? How would the front three work should we sign Osimhen? And what's your overall thoughts on him?
It would be so difficult, I think, style wise, to kind of fit who we have currently into like a traditional three forwards. If you think, like, currently we have three people who can or do quite often play directly through the middle. And Osimhen would be the fourth if nobody else leaves. So that would that would force, if we're going to go with three, that would force one of them out to the right, which none of them have consistently played at over the course of their Liverpool careers. So that would lead me to believe that I wonder if it would be something like something of a style change, which would be almost like you play two strikers, like you play Osimhen and you play like whoever else off of them, and then you have maybe someone who is more of a traditional like right or left winger, and go to maybe more two 6s/8s in the middle, or something to that effect. When we're like in possession and when towards the final third. He's incredibly impressive. I would be very, very happy to end up with him. I think he's really exceptional. I don't know what that would mean for us in terms of like how do we want to play as a formation? Like, does it look more like a two striker? Does it look more like, does Nunez go on the right then and just kind of really try to exploit the space down that side? I mean, the one thing that is very clear is that the only left foot, traditional or natural left footer we have, I believe at the moment, is our Costa. So obviously he's not going to play there, and then Harvey. I don't believe off the top of my head we have any other natural left footers. So there's no. I don't think that kind of suggests to me that that's not something that, if we were to get Osimhen, that's not something that they would want of that right side winger, would be to cutting inside onto the left foot to try to create that way. It would be more of exploiting speed down the wing and trying to get to the end line more. I mean, I'm not going to say, I wouldn't say no. If the option was like, yes, you get him, or no, you don't. Like, yeah, sure. We'll figure something out. So that's fine with me.
I mean, like some of the comments are saying, is 100 million on Osimhen needed when we have other positions that need sorting? I mean, Duncan said, I don't think there are any world-class right wingers available at the moment. I think Szoboszlai can replace Salah, and the Salah funds can be spent on one more world-class midfielder and some defenders. Now, in my mind, I'm only seeing it as Osimhen would come in if we sold Salah. And I agree. I just don't think the money we'd get for Salah, about 200 million maybe, is spending half of that on Osimhen necessary when we have players like Nunez, Diaz, Gakpo. Andreas, what do you agree that it should be something that we need, or do you think it's going to be something like the money that we make from Salah should be spent elsewhere? Like, or do you think we will need to bring in another attacker should he leave?
I kind of get the point of not wanting, because let's say Salah ends up going to like Saudi, like they're going to shell out so much money, like it's going to be like 200 million. Like we'll get a big payday out of it. It'll be hard to see Salah leave, but we'll have a lot of funds then to play around with if he ends up being sold. And I can understand not wanting to then spend half of that money on just one player when we can use it to upgrade more areas. But at the same time, I think Salah, even with all the great attackers we have, Salah leaves such a big hole in goal contributions that I think you need to be willing to spend half that money on an attacker to somewhat replicate what Salah's doing. The problem, I agree with Osimhen, is that because he's not a right winger, he's a right-footed player, it looks like you would need to change a bit of the system or have like Darwin go on the right and then be cutting in. Even then, like the system would need to somewhat change. But I think just an attack of two strikers, Darwin, Nunez, Osimhen, that would terrorize defenses across the Prem and in Europe. Like Trent would have a field day crossing the ball into those two giants. Like Darwin's like 6'2", Osimhen's like almost 6'2". Like it would be, I think it would be a fantastic fit. And I think it would be also fun to see a new kind of Liverpool offense, even if Salah leaves. It would break my heart for Salah no longer to be on this team. But I think it also does provide an exciting opportunity. And yeah, we spent 100 million. We still have another 100 million to go upgrade, get a midfielder, maybe look at the left back situation, get another backup to Robbo. Like we still have a lot of money to then spend after that. So I think it should be a priority to get a class attacker if Salah leaves, even if it will cost a lot of money.
Maybe go back to the 4-4-2 that we used to play when it was Suarez and Sturridge, just two strikers out and out scoring goals. I mean, maybe like you say, him and Nunez up front could work, and then Gakpo could be an attacking midfielder. Szoboszlai and McAllister just a little bit further back, and then I don't know, like Endo or Gravenberch in defensive midfield. I mean, that could work. And Colin, if I said to you, okay, you can have Osimhen, brilliant. But what formation do you play? Do you think that we stick with the 4-3-3 and just drop Nunez? Or does Osimhen go on the bench where he might not be happy? Or do you change formation? What tactically, what are you doing with this transfer?
Well, if we spend the money on Osimhen, he's not going on the bench. If that amount of money is being spent, he's going to start. Other than outside of there being some sort of like nagging injury or outside circumstance, if he's healthy and he's playing, for 100 million, he's going to play. So and to that, I think that in and of itself pretty much necessitates the change of formation, or a change of, not necessarily a full change of style, but just a different way about thinking about especially what we do with our, with the width in the attacking third, which I think is kind of something that we've kind of struggled with slightly over the past year and a half anyways, is, when Salah's going inside, who's giving the width on that side then, and who is able to kind of continue to pull defenses out to that side rather than just allowing them to sit way inside of Salah, and because they know that there's no. What I'm saying is I think that they would both play. I think that it would either be like some sort of like 3-5-2 or 4-2-2-2. I'm unsure as to what he wants. He being Jurgen, what he would want to do in terms of like providing width. I think Diaz is well suited and can definitely play the left side if we were saying traditional 4-4-2. I think that's something that he can do. I don't know that we have anybody at the moment who, I mean, maybe Szoboszlai could do that furthest right side in like a traditional 4-4-2, but and I think and I think that would, if we were kind of operating under there being not that many more changes, I think that is kind of a formation that I could see something defensively that looks 4-4-2, and offensively is like 3 box or 3 Trent slides inside to make sort of a 5 across, but 2 maybe being slightly deeper, and then 3 maybe being slightly above them, and then the 2 kind of strikers up top. But if Salah is to go, and we've kind of hit this a couple times, if he's to go, I think that we have to kind of get out of our own way in terms of thinking about this as only being 4-3-3, or only being, the wingers are actually strikers. And you're going to talk about a lot, when it was, Sadio and Bobby and Mo, that was the three strikers, and the width there is from the fullbacks, and the midfield really is just like, holding and taking up space and pressing when the ball turns over. Like, we've evolved from that already, and I think it would have to evolve again if that were to be the case. And I think the two of them, Andreas made this point, the two of them, in the box or receiving service, or, the two of them running at you, with a fast break, or, transition offense, is like terrifying to think about, because they can both be absolutely lethal and really like draining to play against in terms of like physical presences, and just like, those are guys you have to worry about. You can't just be like, we'll just play the way we do and we'll be fine. Like, you have to consider them deeply in order to make sure that they're not going to hurt you.
I think just before we shoot, I think you've hit the nail on the head that when we lose Salah, we need to just change the way we play. I mean, you look at Coutinho, we sold him and we didn't bring someone in to replace him and try and do what we did before. We signed Van Dijk and Alisson and Fabinho and Keita, and we tried something new, and we went on to win the Champions League and the league. So, it can be successful if you change to a system which is correct. And the way we're sort of struggling to fit players into the team with the Osimhen conversation just shows to me that he's not necessarily what we need. If the fact that we're struggling to sort of pick and choose how we play everyone, what formation we play, who'd start, it's difficult. He's obviously talented. He's got 56 goals in 91 appearances. And we've seen talented players come from Napoli, like Cavani, Lavezzi, plenty of good players in the past. So just before we get on to ending, and before I get on to the final question, just one word response. Andreas, Osimhen signing him 100 million, yes or no?
If Salah goes, yes, for sure.
Okay. Colin, same to you then?
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I think just based on, you guys mentioned 200 million a couple of times. I think that pricing would be quite high. I don't expect us to get that amount of money. And if it is something more like 130, I just don't think that 100 million out of that's probably the best idea.
Yeah.
Make the team, and you brought this up, make the team better in different ways, and buy the players that are necessary to make us really better. It doesn't matter necessarily where that is.
I agree. I completely agree. And then final question, guys. If we got Andre in January to play the 6, do you see a world where Gravenberch can relegate McAllister to the bench in our best 11? Andreas, are you saying yes? Do you think Gravenberch over McAllister, or do you think McAllister over Gravenberch, just before we shoot?
I have to say, I do love Gravenberch in the matches he's played recently. He's been a very tidy player, and honestly has definitely passed what I expected when we signed him. And he wasn't a player that I was very excited when we got linked to him earlier in the summer. So I think he's been phenomenal. However, I think the talk about moving McAllister to the bench is coming off the fact that we've been seeing him play the 6 role currently, and we haven't seen him play that attacking role that he's really meant to be playing. And you see glimpses of it in some of the matches we play when he can be a little bit more attacking and he can make that pass. And I think that Andre, if Andre comes, I think it's more likely that you see Gravenberch's minutes go down a little bit, and we see McAllister finally getting to play the position that we bought him for. So I don't see him being relegated to the bench. At the same time, I feel like we have so many matches now in modern football that Gravenberch is going to get the minutes that he wants to remain happy. We'll be rotating that midfield around. But I don't see, to answer the question, I don't see even with Andre coming, Gravenberch relegating McAllister to the bench.
Right, guys, that is going to wrap it up for us today. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's left comments, anyone who's asked us any questions have been really appreciated. Just before we shoot, please remember to like and subscribe. So close to 10k subscribers, which would mean the world. So please make sure that you do that for us. I've been joined by Andreas and Colin. Thank you both very much for coming on, and we will see you guys soon. Thank you very much and have a good night.